So I wanted to speak about a few things today. I'll start with a lot of people. I wanted to start with in Yenadiyama current events, which I think a lot of people have heard a lot of stories because people love looking at the news and they get sent from family, from friends and relatives and WhatsApp statuses, social media. They get all of this amazing information about great miracles that have been happening. But a lot of times, it's very different when you come to something from the perspective of the Beit Midrash. It's not just I'm in the middle of work and I'm flipping through the phone and okay, that's very interesting, yeah, let's move on. There's a certain significance a person has to give to what's going on and what's happened in the last week, the last, 6 days, 7 days that it's been. I don't think Milchemet Sheshet Hayamim, which is probably the biggest miracle of modern day history, the 6-day war, it pales in comparison to what happened in the last 6 and 7 days with this war. And the idea is that, just like it says in the beginning of this week's Parashat, where it talks about the Meraglim, and it says the spies were put in juxtaposition with the Parashat of Miriam. It says the Parashat of Miriam was about Miriam speaking Lashon Hara and getting tzarat and being sent out of the camp and then coming back in after 7 days. All of Am Yisrael waits for Miriam. The entire nation is at a halt because Miriam, she's not with us. We can't travel. We're not going to travel with her outside the clouds of the glory. So the nation waits. And then the story of the Meraglim. It's interesting because the date of Miriam being held up was exactly during this time. It was Yud Zayin Sivan. It was mamash during these weeks that Miriam was bemet held up. And this is also obviously the story of the Meraglim, Yemei Bikurei Anavim, were the days of the summer days, the days of the Bikurim. When do you bring the Bikurim? This time of the year. As a matter of fact, I just remembered, the whole thing going around with the number 23 of Sivan, the 23rd of Sivan, which is Thursday. Now we're already in Friday, so it's over. But Thursday is the 23rd of Sivan. What is this day, Rabotai? Everybody knows? By now everybody knows. Right? What happened? What Megillat Esther? What are you doing like this? What does this mean? V'nafocho? The letters were sent out by Mordechai and Esther to reverse the decree. That was the reverse? That was what you're saying? They're reversing the decree. So whatever, it's brought down. Obviously this is brought down by some of the Mefarshim, but I think everybody forgot a tool. B'siyata Dishmaya, I forgot the tool. B'siyata Dishmaya, I was looking up when the Meraglim died, which itself is very interesting because that happened, they died. Most people will say, okay, let's do basic math. Tisha B'Av, they came back. Everybody was crying, so they presumably died the 9th of Av, the 10th of Av, someday like that. No, it says they died on the 7th of Elul. The 7th of Elul, Av, Elul, that's far. That's a whole month after. So what happened for an entire month? So there's a commentaries explain that they were sick for a whole month, and they tried to do teshuvah, but the Bet Yosef writes their teshuvah wasn't accepted. Amazing stuff, incredible stuff happening. And that's why we mourn on that day. Interesting thing, but right before that, 3 lines before, in the Tool and in the Shulchan Aruch, in Ilchot Ta'aniyot, it says that one of the days that are fast days in Am Yisrael because of tragedies that happen, it goes through a whole list, the death of the sons of Aaron, and the death of other great tzaddikim, and many, many different incidents that happen on different dates of the year that the tzaddikim fast, not like all of Am Yisrael. It's called Megillat Ta'anit. There's a question, was it Batel, was it not Batel? It's clearly sad days in Am Yisrael. And one of those days, the 23rd of Sivan. I was like, how come this didn't go viral? The 23rd of Sivan was marked as a day of fasting in Am Yisrael. Does anybody have any idea why? No, silence. The room is silent. This status didn't happen. Nobody got this one. It says in the times of Yerovam ben Nevat, the day that the Bikurim were canceled, when Yerovam ben Nevat became in charge and became king, was the 23rd of Sivan. He didn't allow anybody in his kingdom, Malchut Yisrael, to cross over to Malchut Yehuda to bring the Bikurim. And that decree started on the 23rd. As a matter of fact, the Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit says stories of tzaddikim. This expression, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, was said about families that risked their lives because it was under the penalty of death. It wasn't just like, okay, a crime, you pay a little bit of fine. Penalty of death. To cross over to the other side in order to go to Beit HaMikdash, Yerovam said, Sivan, you'd be killed. And they put guards. It was mamash immigration policy. It was a Trumpian wall with ICE and Border Patrol on it. But Border Patrol is nice compared to Al Tikre ICE ela nice. They were nice compared to what Yerovam ben Nevat did. He didn't allow anybody to go into Yerushalayim for the purpose of bringing korbanot. Obviously, commerce did happen. So there were people that brought bikurim and hid them and said, oh, we're just going to sell them, or we're going to do this, or we're doing that. And they would escape, and then they would cross over to the other side, and they would show their bikurim and bemet, dance up, enjoy. Once they made it into Malchut Yehuda, it was safe for them, because of course the kingdom of Yehuda was more than inviting for them, but it was the problem was where they were in Malchut Yisrael. So that happened on the 23rd of Sivan, which marks it as a day of mourning. Be'emet, some ask a question. I saw this brought down in the Achronim, that why is it that we celebrate the 14th of Adar? Purim is celebrated on the 14th of Adar. Be'emet, it's kind of arbitrary. I mean, yeah, that's when the war happened and we defeated, but sort of that was the expected conclusion. What really changed it was, you could say, the 23rd of Sivan, when the letters went out and changed the story. The whole story of Purim changed because of those second letters. So there's various explanations. It was just a nullification of the first letter. That's one explanation. But the second explanation I saw is, Be'emet, they didn't want to make that day a happy day because it was already a sad day. So since we had the days of Yerovam, it's been declared a fast day, and a day where Am Yisrael mourns and does tshuva and ma'asim tovim and gives more tzedakah, and a lot of people are fasting. They didn't want to make it a day of celebration. So it's unbelievable. So that's why they didn't celebrate. Purim was not the 23rd of Sivan because of that fact, according to some of the opinions. Regardless of that, the Maaseh, there's a lot of things that are coming out. I was going to mention that the story of the Meraglim was put juxtaposed next to the story of Miriam. And Rashi says on the spot, because they saw what happened to Miriam due to the Lashon Hara, and they should have taken lesson and not spoken Lashon Hara about the land Eretz Kenan. V'lo lakchu musar. Now, Rabotai, I want everybody to realize, how many events happen in a person's lifetime? Millions of events. Every second there's a new event, a new scene, a new situation, a new story. What's the complaint on the Meraglim? So they looked and they saw an event happen that was external to them. Miriam had nothing to do with them, right? And yes, it's true that all of Am Yisrael had to wait 7 days for Miriam, but there were many events happening simultaneously, their own family, their own community, their own, miracles happening around them. They had to learn Torah with Moshe Rabbeinu. They had children to take care of. There's millions of events happening around them. And what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say? The Meraglim were supposed to look at Miriam, take a lesson from that, and apply it to themselves and not speak Lashon Hara. And even though you could really argue, like, come on, are you comparing apples and oranges? Miriam spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe Rabbeinu, okay, the greatest of all people ever to walk the face of the earth. What does that have to do with land? Not speaking Lashon Hara. You really want them to learn a lesson from the story of Miriam, which seems to not really have an application? That also, there's a nice pshat that I saw, that the commentaries say Moshe Rabbeinu thought that Moshe Rabbeinu thought of himself as Aish Moshe Anav Me'od Mikol Adam Asher Al Penei Adama. That word Al Penei Adama means on the ground. Moshe Rabbeinu considered himself like the ground. There was no difference between him and the ground. So therefore, according to Moshe Rabbeinu, Bemet, there was a good comparison. Because Miriam spoke about the ground. Anochi afar va'efer. What am I? So there was a reason to be. But says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shelach lecha malachim, meraglim. Shelach lecha meraglim. Right? You go ahead and send the spies, because according to your shita, there's a lesson to be learned. But I'm telling you, you're not the ground. You're much greater. They're not going to learn any lesson from that, and therefore they might speak Lashon Hara. So, Be'emet, the criticism on the Meraglim is what? It comes out that a person is obligated, is mandated by the Torah to take every event that happens around him and take musar from it and to learn from it. Halacha lema'aseh. How am I supposed to act? If I see this happening in front of me, what am I supposed to learn from that? And the fact that the Meraglim didn't do that for one event that you could have made a lot of distinctions in is why they got punished. The Torah is emphasizing the reason of the punishment of the Meraglim. You saw this happen, you should have learned your lesson. So that means we can't just walk around this world and say, wow, 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 amazing, amazing, and then move on. We have to take it and learn a lesson. So if something happens around us, and this, Rabotai, is not just any event, this is an incredible historic event in Am Yisrael that is unprecedented in modern history. The level of nis. And this brings me to the Ramban. I was thinking about it a little bit, the very, very famous Ramban in Parashat Bo, which tells us that a person sees an airplane flying in the air. Right? Airplane's up in the air. What are you saying to yourself? You're saying, okay, there was this guy named Orville, I think his name was. Who was the guy that first? Huh?
Wright brothers.
Wright brothers. What was the guy's name? Orville, right? Ah, the guy, Orville. And what's the other one's name? Nobody remembers him. But there were two brothers. They got the plane. They figured out how to get it to fly. And then they looked at the bird and they figured out how to do it. I see an airplane flying. I see the marvels of science. No, says the Ramban. Shoteh sheba olam. What you're seeing is Yad Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took something and lifted it up. Wow. Min hanisim hagiluyim yilmad adam hanisim hanistarim. That if you see the miracles of Yetziat Mitzrayim and you see the open hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you should know that that's not the only miracle that's happening, but everything that you call nature is also just the miracle of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just you got used to it. And Be'emet, the people that never saw an airplane in their life, and you show them an airplane for the first time, how do they... They'll go like this. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. There's no such thing. How could it be? How come it's in the air? There's nothing holding it. This is a huge piece of equipment. They won't understand it, right? That's really Be'emet, everything that happens around us. Says the Ramban, that's the truth. It's all a miracle. Elama, sometimes you're used to it, so you just don't look at it as a miracle. But everything is a miracle. So a person comes from that lens, and you look at these stories, and you look at what's happening, and I'll just give you a little bit. I did a little bit of research, a little bit from what I know. But let me just tell you one point of Ashkacha. That personally, I got great chizuk from it. The attack started in Israel when Israel attacked Iran. I believe it was Friday there and Thursday night over here, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Right? The Tuesday before, I was speaking to somebody I know in Israel. It's, I'm not going to say who, but maybe some of you know him, probably. How you doing? How's everything going? Is it good? Yeah? Okay, great. Wonderful. You should know, Leeor, Israel's going to attack Iran anytime soon. How do you know? Well, I was by this Rav, this Gadol, and the top people in the army came and they said, this is what we're planning on doing, and we want a bracha from the Gedolei Ador. So you should know, just be ready. In another few days, it's not exactly sure when, but in the next few days, there's going to be a major attack on Iran. I was like, that's pretty cool. Okay. I ended up calling a few of my friends and saying, guys, Abotai, there's going to be a major attack. And then Be'emet, like 2 days later, huge attack, right? All of this, all over the news, Israel attacked Iran. I'm thinking to myself, and especially as the news was developing, and like you're finding out that Iran had no idea, and they weren't expecting, and they were blindsided, and all this happened to them, and this whole entire apparatus, which we'll get a little bit into, totally took them by surprise for various reasons that they were basically caught sleeping and totally off guard. And I'm thinking to myself, it's an entire country, massive, which intelligence apparatuses of Iran, right? And you have leaders, and you have all of their newscasts, and all of their entire millions of people. I don't know how many people live in Iran, but 80 million people live in Iran. And they're all caught by surprise that Israel's dying. Here's an individual in New York just living on, oh yeah, they're going to be attacked in 2 days. It's unbelievable. Just think about that for a minute. The whole entire country is caught by surprise of such a massive thing, but people in New York know about it. Jews in New York know about it. Unbelievable. The Yad Hashem that an entire country could be so blind and miss it is simply no different than what happened in Sodom with Lot. Just a total, and it wasn't like you should have expected it. How does this happen? HaKadosh Baruch Hu blinded them. There's no other way to explain it than HaKadosh Baruch Hu's blinding them. That's an incredible thing.
Trump gave them 60 days to sign the treaty. Day 61 they attacked, so we should have expected.
Yeah,
even then
absolutely right. At least be choshesh and plan and this, all circumstances. Yes, question.
October 7th happened the same way.
1 second, we'll get to October 7th in a minute. Adirab, October 7th proves this the most. Everything that happened, but I want to build slowly. I'll build slowly. Let's go step by step. Now, Rabotai, what do you think Iran had in store? So they came out with reports, and I did a little research on this, and this is known in Israel and as well. The strategy Iran was planning to do against Am Yisrael Bar Minan, they knew about Arrow 3 and about the David sling and Iron Dome and all these things. They understood that. They had a strategy to counter, that they're simply just going to shoot a barrage of 400 missiles a day. 400 ballistic missiles would have overwhelmed the entire system. If on day one they were able to stop it, if you do it on it, just for the understanding, the last 7 days they saw it like 400 altogether. To do it in 1 day would have overwhelmed the system, and they would have known that at least 25% would have gotten through and gotten into civilizations and crowded areas and done significant damage. So that was the strategy. And how was that strategy broken? Unbelievable. The Nisim. This is where people get it wrong. They keep looking at it as Mossad this, the president that. The whole thing is totally crooked. It's all Yad Hashem. It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu navigating the wisdom that was given to each and every person in that Modin. Look at which other country has this wisdom. Which other country? Why do you think it's Am Yisrael that has this wisdom? Why? Because we have a higher IQ? No, because we have a Kadosh Baruch Hu who implants the wisdom into the minds, no different than you take a chip and you put it into somebody's head. He put this wisdom in, and he made sure that every step of the way will work flawlessly in the execution as well. So it was the Atachonen Adam Dat and the knowledge and the know-how to do amazing things, to get drones. How do you have drones being built in Iran by people that are basically working for the Mossad, or the Mossad itself, are building drones in Iran that they were able to place relatively next to, battering missile launchers, and they would, right as the planes were coming, they got those drones to bomb all of these surface-to-air missiles, so that they were totally neutralized and the radar systems totally destroyed. How did you track it down? How did you make sure, get these parts in? A lot of times they would bring in parts. People that were bringing them in didn't even know that they were bringing in what they were bringing in. It's just a level. So, a ballistic missile. Let's turn the tables around, okay? If Israel shoots at Iran, civilized in civilization, in the cities and populations of where Iranians lived, if Israel would have shot in Iran 100 ballistic missiles aimed at civilians, what kind of damage would that have done? On average, we're not going to go like the maximum. They say a ballistic missile could kill, depending on how crowded the place is and like the time of day and various other factors, between 50 to 500 people killed. And then like another, possibly around maybe, what were the numbers? 500 people injured on average. So let's take an estimate of 200 people dead and 500 people injured on average by one missile. And you shoot 100, and let's say not all 100 hit the mark, so let's say maybe 70% hit the mark. 100 missiles shot In Derech HaTeva, 14,000 people. 14,000 people are dead. And injured, 35,000. Average. 100 missiles. That's the result that is supposed to happen al pi derech HaTeva. Instead of 14,000 people, October 7th was 1,000 plus. 1,200 people. 14,000 people would be dead with 100 missiles. 400 missiles have been shot. I think even more by this point. 400 missiles out, and how many people have been dead? Not. I mean, every person is incredible, but 23, 24, maybe maximum 30 people dead out of 400 missiles. These are not normal numbers. These are miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, no, that's not going to hurt anybody. That's not going to hurt anybody. That's not going to hurt. I'm going to stop this. The level of that we have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu and realize and appreciate the miracle. We can't just let this go by and say, yes, that's what Iron Dome is. Yes, that's what Arrow 3 is. This is Nisim v'Niflaot, no less than Makat Barad that happened. And Arsen, he's bringing in a good point. What about October 7th? I think October 7th brings out so much. I saw one of them, Rabbi Kolodetsky, he puts out every week an article on Parashat. And this week, I saw what he wrote. He wrote not just about the Parashat, he also wrote about various questions and answers that he was asked. And people asked him, we don't really understand. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mashgiach, he is the one that's, directing everything. And he's doing these incredible miracles. So how come there are arrows that land, missiles that land? And on the other hand, if there's no Hashgacha, so how could there be so many great miracles? It doesn't make sense. Like, what's going on? And he says, look, we don't know. Cheshbonot Shamayim, we don't know. But we do have this concept. We have a right to sort of assess as best as we can, but with an exclamation, with a question mark at the end of it. We're not saying definitively, but one of the things he says, which I think is very powerful, he says that a lot of times when you have something that is 100%, that is foolproof, you no longer appreciate it. As he gives an example, when they came out with antibiotics, it was a revolutionary chidush because people were bemet dying. Before antibiotics, bacteria was killing people. Like you wouldn't have a way to control it. There was no way to stop it. And then they came out with antibiotics, and basically it neutralized all of these deaths 100%. Like people stopped dying because of these things. And penicillin, same idea. So once that happens, it's 100%, then it's a given. So, okay, that's life. It moves on. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obviously every person has his own calculation. He's supposed to live this long, he's supposed to live that. But at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows damage to happen to realize that when the other 99% of the time damage doesn't happen, hey buddy, it's a huge miracle. It's unbelievable because every single one of these missiles could have done such havoc to an entire city, destroyed blocks. The amount of shockwave these things cause to just blow up everything around them, destroy everything around them is staggering. And the nisim v'niflaot that we're seeing shouldn't be taken for granted because of that math. Now, let's get to October 7th because I think it's important. I think it's very important. On the one hand, you say to yourself, so many miracles are happening now, and in October 7th, it was almost like the exact reverse. Like, look at all the intelligence that had to go into all of these operations. The Mossad was like seamlessly figuring out all the moving parts simultaneously. Nothing was uncovered. The whole plan to perfection worked, destroyed, debilitated Iran's Air Force. Not a single plane. Think about it, like you have an Air Force. Why aren't you fighting back? Not a single plane is taking off to fight and to combat. That's how bad it is. That's like how much we know if we fly a plane in the air, it's going to be shot down like in 2 seconds. We're not even going to try to fly. It's like that's not normal that a country put another country in such a position. And like if you were given this sheet, right? I'm going to show you this map, the great map of Israel, little tiny Israel, and Iran, right? If you just were given this without context, a country that small, a country, who's going to win this war? Right? If you were asked on a test, history, some Zimbabwe and who knows, some other place, who's going to win the war? You're like, oh, this big one over here is going to win for sure. Look how much bigger it is. And this little country is bringing this big country to its knees. Not normal. Akadosh Baruch Hu. There's no way to explain. And then if you look at the rest of the map and you say to yourself, okay, what's the other countries? Egypt, rabid anti-Semites. Jordan, no friend of Israel. Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. These are all Turkey, all enemy countries. The more you go to Africa, the more they hate us. It just gets worse, like with the heat. It gets hotter. Until you get to South Africa, and then they really hate us. Probably the most over there. Rishaim over there too. But you see,
people surrounding us and can't do anything to us.
It's unbelievable. You look at this and you say to yourself, none of this makes any sense. How a country this small, if it's not a Kadosh Baruch Hu, then it's not possible. There's no way that you explain any of these events. So October 7th was the exact reverse. It was exactly the reverse, where on the one hand, Mossad, intelligence, everything, nothing worked. Everything blindsided completely. We're able to penetrate. If that doesn't tell you that it's nothing to do with Mossad, army, IDF, it's simply HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, I want this to work and I don't want this to work. There is no other way to explain it. How do you have this incredible intelligence organization doing so much damage to Iran at the same time a bunch of people with flip-flops come walking in and start killing 1,000 people? It doesn't make any sense. It's not an army. They're primitive, like beyond belief. And they were able to do it with hang gliders. They come in hang gliders. You come with your F-35, they have hang gliders. Talk about Ele Barechev, Ele Basusim. That's like not even close. But when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants something to happen. Now, I'll say, you know how Rabbi Akiva, a famous story of Rabbi Akiva and the candle that was extinguished by the wind, and the rooster that was killed also, and the chamor, the donkey. So what did Rabbi Akiva say? He said that Gam zu letova, right? Kol ma de'avid hamana letav avid. This expression, at first Rabbi Akiva thought that it was a negative, but then he saw how much bracha emerged from it. In a certain sense, one can argue, and now October 7th was a devastating tragedy in Am Yisrael that was second to only the Holocaust. At the same time, there was also tremendous chesed. Think about the events, right? So on the map, what was Iran's strategy? Aside from all the missiles that it had stocked up and everything, they had Gaza on the west side. They had the West Bank on the east side of Israel, right inside, mamash inside Israel, right? And then you have Hezbollah, which is the north. So Am Yisrael is surrounded by three sides of pure arms of Iran. Now Syria was run by Assad, who was Iran, b'chavod, bruchim habayim, whatever you want, weapons, all of the weapons of Hezbollah was through Assad. If Assad wasn't busy with a civil war, he would also be fighting against Israel. He happened to have had a civil war and he wasn't able to join into the battle. So we have... Well, I was getting to Iraq. And Iraq is Iraq. And the Houthis. So all of these enemies majorly stocked weapons, missiles, everything you could imagine, soldiers, and they're right on the borders, ready to do tremendous damage, and Iran is on its way to get nuclear weapons. This was the situation right before October 7th. The fact that we were not aware of how bad the circumstance was doesn't mean it wasn't that bad. It was really bad. So October 7th happened, and Bemet, it really emboldened all of the Arab world, and they said, look at that, they're vulnerable, they're not invincible, their army can be washed away so easily. If Hezbollah would have joined, we could have really done even a bigger number on the Jewish people. They were on a high. But what happened after that? Look at Gaza now. Gaza is like not even, it doesn't even exist anymore. There is no Gaza, it's all ruined. Hezbollah, the entire army brought down to his knees, beepers blowing up. 7,000, 8,000 soldiers, either dead, half of them are dead, half of them are injured beyond capacity to function anymore. 8,000 soldiers without really a war. They killed 8,000 soldiers. It's an incredible number, or injured, killed or injured.
Decapitated their leader.
And their leadership, right, exactly, and the leadership, all dead. Nasrallah gone, a very efficient leader, killed, wiped out. All of Hamas's leaders wiped out. Their ga'ava, their confidence in being able to win, destroyed. For the next 30 years, psychologically, Hezbollah is not going to recover. Syria, which was in a war for 10 years, a civil war. Syria, a powerful force that was helping and aiding, their entire military collapsed overnight. The Ami said comes because Assad lost the war to the rebels, so he was forced into exile. That means the entire military was on the ground. Israel comes in and just like cleans up the shop. It just it's like sweeps the floor. Just blow up here, blow up there, no problem over there. The entire military of Syria was taken out, and now there's a new guard, and hopefully they'll be better because they don't seem like to be on Iran's side. So it seems like they hate our enemies more than they hate us, which is not such bad news. Could be it was better than Assad. So that's as far as Syria is concerned. So Gaza, a shell of what it used to be. Hezbollah nowhere near able to do any more damage. Syria gone, and now Iran basically handcuffed for who knows how long. I mean, we don't know the future and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in store. But at the end of the day, look at all these events that transpired directly as a result of the tragedy of October 7th. From October 7th, all of these things emerged one after the other. Gaza fell, Hezbollah fell, Syria fell, Iran is falling. All of these enemies, bitter enemies that are all tied to each other, they're all collapsing in front of our eyes in real time. So we look at October 7th, Arsen, you asked a good question. October 7th was HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, I'm in charge. Not anybody else. There's no kochi ve'otzim yadi. Whatever I want, ki'im biruchi amar Hashem, in the absolute sense. And now that I'm in charge, and Am Yisrael understands that, and Bemet, you can really ask a question. What zechut do a lot of these leaders that we have, our leaders, they're very far, a far cry from being people of Torah and representative of our holy and incredible religion. A lot of the people in the government, and even I say that even a lot about, unfortunately, some of the religious people in the government have no appreciation for Torah. They're looking to put Bnei Yeshivot in jail worse than they do to terrorists. It's unbelievable. So you say, so what zechut does such a government had? The answer is that they saw October 7th, and you find that these events, and it says, they just put out that Benjamin Netanyahu, one of a few things that he did. Number one, when they were convening the meeting of what to do with Iran, people don't know this, but it was I think in Israel it's more known. They divided up the whole entire Tehillim amongst the ministers. Just amongst the people and the ministers, they divided the whole Tehillim. They said it on the spot. They finished the whole Tehillim on the spot. Before they went ahead and they finalized the decision. Just to show you, sometimes we fail to appreciate they may be doing a lot of things wrong, but at the end of the day, you said the Tehillim, you acknowledge. You went to the Kotel before you started this operation. They quoted Benjamin Netanyahu, says that after he met, he said, Elokim yeh be'ezrenu. Hashem should be by our aid, should be our help. And he said, Ki ata tzarich siyata dishmaya, because you need, in these types of situations, you need siyata dishmaya. Benjamin Netanyahu, who would have thought? A prime minister of Israel who's, as always in its history, been very rapidly left-wing, wanting to always erase HaKadosh Baruch Hu from the picture, from the national anthem of the Jewish people. Sadly, doesn't mention a word about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not the Declaration of Independence, not the national anthem. No mention of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we would get to a point where it's palatable and acceptable for the leader of the country to say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not just to say HaKadosh Baruch Hu in lip service, to say that without HaKadosh Baruch Hu's help, none of this could be successful. Af echad lo yodea. These are words that he said. Nobody knows. Af echad lo yodea bidyuk ech ze yeh. Nobody knows how this is going to happen. Meaning, even me, who's in charge of the whole operation, I have no idea if this is going to be successful or not. So what do I need? I need HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A man who's willing to say, I need HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Acknowledge that this war is not being fought by soldiers, but being fought by HaKadosh Baruch Hu when it's all said and done, is a man that has a zechut, that deserves to win the war. And it could very well be that that's part of the cheshbon. Obviously, there's much more. It's Hashem's world. There's a lot of calculations. There's a lot of great tzaddikim in Am Yisrael. There's been a Torah in Am Yisrael. There's a lot of reasons, but that's for sure something that's an incredible merit to be said about what's going on here. So we're looking at these events and we're seeing Be'emet history unfold before our eyes, matters that are miracles no less than Yetziat Mitzrayim, the miracles that we're seeing today. Yad Hashem in such a high level that there is no words to express. Just thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you. You care so much about us. What am I going to do to return the favor, HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What can I do to add? What can I do to help? How much more can be done to assist in these things? So that's, I think, a large part. There's some other things that I saw. One of the great miracles that happened was today. Mamash today, the hospital, I'm sure people heard about this. Soroka Hospital was hit directly with a missile. But it's a big hospital. The missile hit in the surgical ward, which is a certain wing of the hospital. The night before, the minister, I believe it's in Beersheba, called up the hospital and said, you got to clear the surgical ward because it's not safe. And they're like, really? Why? He said, precautionary measures, you have to clear it. They didn't ask too many questions. It was a little bit, a big undertaking. But he gave orders. They cleared it the night before. The next morning, the missile hits directly onto the ward. Not a single person is there. So Yad Hashem. It's happening left and right. There's so many stories, countless stories of Batei Knesiyot being even hit directly, but the Sifrei Torah, the whole Beit HaKnesset is burnt down, the Sifrei Torah are safe. Nothing happens to the Sefer Torah. These are people are filming. It was one of the things going around. The guy filmed how his whole house doors were knocked out. Doors knocked out, windows blown up, shards everywhere. Everything is glass all over the floor. And he shows his little area of where the Sfarim is with this thin little glass, nothing is harmed. All around, everything is destroyed, but the Sfarim that are in the house, totally protected. These are not one or two stories. There was another story out of Bnei Brak that I read in one of these religious forums. It says that in Bnei Brak what happened was there was a certain school that they were preparing as a mamad, which means as basically a safe room that people should go to, and the Pikud Oref was saying that this is where the people located nearby should go to. And Bemet, the night before they were preparing it and everything, it was like a place where there was like higher education learning of Torah, I don't know what exactly, something like maybe a seminary of some sort. And they gave the keys because they were leaving, they gave the keys to one of the neighbors. The neighbor had the key and he fell asleep. The alarm sounded, everybody ran to the mamad, but it was locked and they weren't able to go in and they left. So they went to other places. And Bemet, the missile hit right in that area. Although the mamad actually stayed safe, but the whole debris was piled up right by the entrance. So there would have been no way for them to get out of the mamad for who knows how long, maybe days even, just to get out of it. And bizchut the fact that the guy was sleeping with the key and they had to go to other places, they were able to be in other places where they were totally fine and they were able to get out. Stories like this, you say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show to such a high level of Gilui Shekhinah that is in front of our eyes. We just have to open our eyes and we have to say, Tov leodot laHashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, anisecha v'nifleotecha she'asita imanu bechol yom vayom. All the miracles that you're doing for us now, just shed light on every miracle that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us. And really, this connects to the story of the Meraglim, because Meraglim also said, how's it possible? How's it possible? So many people hate us. So many people living in this land. Nifilim, Bnei Anakim, giants living in this land. How are you going to be able to defeat them? And Kalev and Yoshua say, Saltzilam me'alehem. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that we're keeping the Torah to the best of our abilities, He doesn't say, be a tzaddik and I'll do miracles for you. Says the Chafetz Chaim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you're a tzaddik, I'll do miracles. He says, Just don't rebel against me. The standard is very low. Just don't rebel. Try your best. Do as much as you can. You're not a perfect tzaddik. You have some things wrong. Okay, you're working on it. That's good enough. I'll do miracles for you. That's what I need. And that's Bezat Hashem. We should be zochet to see Be'emet Tshuva Shelema. All of Am Yisrael come back to closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should be zochet to see all of the enemies around us fall before us. And Charbam Tavo Bilibam Kashtotam Tishabana. Their spears and their swords to go into their own hearts. And Bezat Hashem, Am Yisrael should be Am Nosha Ba'Hashem, Magen Ezrenu V'Asher Herev Gavatenu. And as the operation, right, is called Am Kilavi. Famous operation, the rising line. So we know what's the rising line, as the Torah tells us. Am kilavi v'cha ari itnasa. The way that Am Yisrael is ari. What's the ari of Am Yisrael? The fact that yitgaber ka'ari la'asot retzon boreo. That we wake up in the morning and we come to Batei Knesiot and we say Kiryat Shema and we're on time and we're doing Torah, mitzvot, u'ma'asim tovim. That's what the Am Kilavi is. That's the protection of Am Yisrael. That's what guards us. So if we're not coming to Batei Knesiot, let's start coming. If we're coming, try to come and concentrate more. Try to come on time. Try to make sure that you're saying Kiryat Shema with Kavanah. That is the Am Kilavi that the Torah was referring to, that all of the Goyim are afraid of in fear and understand that this is not a simple nation. This is a nation that is governed by miracles. We had Nazis trying to kill us. We had Arabs trying to kill us. We have Shiites and Sunnis trying. Everybody tried to kill us. And they armed together, and at the end of the day, this tiny little nation keeps coming back stronger than ever. Every time we fall once, we make our enemies fall 7 times. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Be'emet, everybody, I think all of the Muslims that have a sechel, the ones that have a sechel, they realize this is not a normal nation. This is the nation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're the nation of miracles, and we're the nation of Hashem, and we have to cling to that with our dear life. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.